The heavy oak door slammed shut behind them with a sound that felt like the end of the world. "Get out and never come back, you disgusting sinners," their father roared from inside the ranch house, his voice cracking with rage that had been building for years. Charlie Thompson, 22 years old, gripped her sister Julia, 20 years old, by the hand as rain poured down, soaking them both while they stood on the porch of the only home they had ever known in rural Texas. Inside, Margaret, their mother, had screamed about sin and shame, about how the church would never forgive them and how the whole town would turn its back. But she had not stepped forward to stop their father from throwing them out. Charlie could still hear the echo of that scream in her head as she pulled Julia toward the old pickup truck parked in the driveway. "We have each other, that is all that matters now," Charlie whispered, her voice steady even though her heart was breaking into pieces she had never imagined possible. Julia nodded, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks, but her grip on Charlie's hand never loosened. They had always been close as sisters, growing up on this land, running through the fields, riding horses, and sharing secrets under the stars. But over the last 2 years that closeness had turned into something deeper, something undeniable and beautiful that they could no longer hide. The confession had come at Christmas dinner when their father found them kissing in the barn after midnight mass. He had dragged them into the living room in front of the whole family, demanding they deny it, but they could not. "We love each other," Julia had said quietly, her voice trembling yet clear. "Not as sisters but as women who were meant to be together." The room had exploded with shock and anger, their Aunt Evelyn gasping and crossing herself, their cousin Lily whispering, "How could you do this to us?" Their brother had stormed out without a word, but the worst was their mother's face, twisted in disappointment and fear. "You are no daughters of mine anymore," their father had declared before ordering them to pack. Now, as they drove away from the Harlan Ranch, the headlights cutting through the storm, Charlie glanced at Julia in the passenger seat and felt a wave of guilt mixed with fierce protectiveness. Was their love worth losing everything, the family, the land, the future they had planned here? Julia reached over and squeezed her knee as if reading her mind. "It has to be," she said softly, "because without it we would not be us." They drove through the night, stopping at a cheap motel on the edge of Austin just as dawn broke. With only 2 suitcases and a few $100s saved from summer jobs, they checked in under fake names, feeling like fugitives in their own state. Charlie lay awake staring at the water-stained ceiling while Julia slept curled against her side. Memories flooded in of childhood picnics on the ranch, of their mother teaching them to bake pies, of their father proudly showing them how to rope cattle. All gone now because they had dared to love each other the way their hearts demanded. The next morning they found a newspaper and circled help wanted ads. Charlie took a job on a construction site hauling lumber, her muscles aching by the end of the day but her mind clear. Julia waited tables at a diner, smiling through rude customers and aching feet. Every night they returned to their tiny studio apartment, collapsing into each other's arms, whispering promises that their love would carry them through. The small town they left behind would spread the news fast, they knew. But here in the city, anonymity was a shield, even if loneliness crept in when they thought of holidays they would never share again. Weeks turned into months and the sisters learned to survive on little. They cooked simple meals together, laughed at bad television, and held each other through nightmares where their father's voice still thundered. Charlie often woke with a start, her chest tight, wondering if they had made the right choice, if their love was truly pure, or if the world was right to call it wrong. Julia would pull her close, stroking her hair, and say, "Remember the way the stars looked over the ranch when we first kissed? That feeling is real and it is ours, no one can take it." Their bond deepened in those hard times, becoming the only constant in a world that had rejected them. Yet the price was already clear in the way Julia's eyes sometimes filled with tears when she saw families walking together in the park, or how Charlie clenched her fists when strangers stared too long at them holding hands. Society was not kind to women like them, especially sisters, and the whispers they overheard in grocery stores cut deep. Still they pushed forward, determined to build something new from the ashes of what they had lost. By the end of the first year they had saved enough to rent a better place, and Charlie enrolled in night classes for business while Julia took online courses in marketing. Their dreams were small but shared, and in each other's eyes they saw the future they refused to let their family steal. The years blurred together in a rhythm of work and quiet evenings in their Austin apartment. Charlie rose through the ranks at the construction firm, eventually starting her own small crew, flipping rundown houses on the weekends. Julia handled the books and listings, turning their side hustle into a steady income. Every success felt like a quiet victory against the family that had cast them out, yet every setback brought back the old doubts. One evening after a deal fell through because a client learned about their relationship and backed out, Charlie sat on the couch, head in her hands. Maybe they were right, maybe this love is destroying us, she muttered. Julia knelt in front of her, taking her face in both hands. No, it is what keeps us alive, she replied, her voice fierce. We paid the price, but look at what we are building together. Their mentor, a sharp-witted real estate agent named Elena, became a rare ally in the city, a woman who had faced her own prejudices and taught them to navigate the business world without hiding who they were. Elena challenged them to embrace their story rather than run from it, pushing Charlie to pitch projects with honesty and Julia to network without shame. Yet betrayal came from within their small circle, when an old friend from Texas visited and promised to keep their secret, only to leak it to a local blog back home. The article spread through their hometown like wildfire, renewing the shame their family felt. Charlie wanted to drive back and confront everyone, but Julia held her back, reminding her that revenge would only drag them down. Instead, they channeled the pain into their work, expanding their company Thompson Sisters Development into larger commercial flips. The moral dilemma hit hardest during a big contract negotiation where the investor demanded they present as single straight women to avoid bad press. Charlie refused on the spot, walking out of the meeting, her hand finding Julius outside the building. We will lose this deal, she said, but we will not lose ourselves. Julia nodded, tears in her eyes, knowing the financial hit would be painful, but the alternative would erode the very love that had saved them. They lost the contract but gained respect from smaller clients who valued integrity, and their business grew steadily despite the setbacks. Flashbacks haunted them during quiet moments, Charlie remembering their mother's silent tears the night they left, wondering if Margaret ever regretted not fighting for them. Julia struggled more with the religious guilt drilled into them since childhood, attending secret therapy sessions where she unpacked the conflict between her faith and her heart. The therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Reyes, helped her see that love in its truest form could not be sin, but the journey to believe it was long and filled with tears. Charlie supported her through every session, holding her afterward and promising that their bond was worth every sacrifice. Societal prejudice followed them everywhere, from landlords who suddenly had no vacancies to coworkers who made snide comments behind their backs. Yet each obstacle strengthened their resolve. By year 5, they had bought their first investment property, a small office building that they renovated themselves, working side by side late into the night, sharing tools and stolen kisses when no one was looking. Their love remained pure and emotional, a constant source of comfort and strength, never crossing into anything the world could use against them in judgment. As the company grew, so did the whispers in Austin about the two Thompson sisters who lived and worked together with an intensity that raised eyebrows. They ignored it, focusing instead on building a reputation for honest deals and community projects. One night after closing on their biggest flip, yet Charlie stood on the rooftop with Julia, overlooking the city lights. 10 years ago we lost everything, she said softly. Today we have built something no one can take away. Julia leaned her head on Charlie's shoulder. But the ranch, the family, it still calls to me sometimes. Charlie felt the same pull, the ancestral land that had defined their childhood, now a distant memory tainted by rejection. Little did they know that call would soon become impossible to ignore when news reached them of the Harlan Ranch facing foreclosure. The county was planning a major development project, turning the family acres into a modern eco-community, and the land their father had sworn would never leave the family was up for bids. Charlie and Julia looked at each other across the kitchen table the same night the article appeared. We could bid anonymously, Julia suggested, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. Charlie nodded, the fire of old pain reigniting in her chest. This time we return on our terms. The decision set in motion a chain of events that would force them to face every moral question, and every price they had paid for loving each other. The bid process was meticulous and secretive. Thompson Sisters Development submitted their proposal through layers of lawyers and shell companies, ensuring no one in Texas connected the dots to the disowned daughters. Their track record spoke for itself: successful urban renewals, community-focused designs, and financial stability that impressed the county board. Weeks of waiting followed, filled with late-night strategy sessions where Julia paced the floor, worrying about what would happen if their identities were revealed too soon. What if mother sees us? What if father tries to stop it? She asked one night, her hands shaking. Charlie pulled her into a tight embrace. Then we show them how strong our love made us, she replied, though inside she battled her own storm of resentment and lingering love for the family that had betrayed them. The moral weight pressed on both of them was returning to claim the land, justice, Or was it revenge that would only deepen the family rift? Dr. Rhea's sessions helped Julia process the guilt, but Charlie preferred action, channeling her energy into perfecting the project plans that included affordable housing units and green spaces reminiscent of the ranch they once roamed freely. When the news came that their bid had won as lead investor, the sisters celebrated quietly with a simple dinner at home, toasting with sparkling water and promising each other they would face whatever came next together. Preparation took months, hiring local contractors, reviewing blueprints, and steeling themselves for the return. Flashbacks intensified during this time, Charlie recalling the exact moment their father had pointed at the door, his face red with fury, Julia remembering their mother's whispered prayer for their souls as they packed. Those memories fueled their determination, but also sparked arguments between them. Julia wanted to reach out to their mother first to test the waters. Charlie insisted on a clean professional entry, no personal contact until the deal was sealed. Their bond was tested in those disagreements, each sister paying the emotional price of differing visions for healing or conquest. Elena, their mentor, flew in for support, reminding them that success in business often required facing the past head-on. "You two have already survived the worst," she said. "Now make it count." As the move date approached, small betrayals from their past resurfaced. When an old high school acquaintance posted online about the mysterious investors possibly being the infamous Thompson sisters, the rumor mill in their hometown began churning, but the sisters stayed silent, focusing on logistics. The drive back to Texas 10 years after that rainy night was tense, Julia gripping the steering wheel, while Charlie navigated with maps of the ranch layout updated for development. Every mile marker brought a wave of nostalgia mixed with dread, the familiar landscapes triggering memories of happier times before love had become their crime. Upon crossing into the county line, they stopped at a roadside diner where no one recognized them, yet the waitress' casual remark about the big development project at Harlan Ranch made Julia tear up. "We are that project," Charlie whispered, squeezing her hand under the table. Their arrival in the small town was understated, checking into a modest hotel on the outskirts to avoid immediate attention. The first few days were spent in meetings with county officials, reviewing permits and timelines, all while keeping their identities under wraps. The tension built as locals speculated about the out-of-town investors, and old family friends unknowingly crossed paths with them in stores. One afternoon, while walking the ranch perimeter under the guise of site inspection, Julia spotted their Aunt Evelyn in the distance, tending to a small garden plot that had once been part of the family land. The sight stopped her cold memories of Evelyn's initial support, turning to betrayal when she had confirmed their relationship to their father, flooding back. Charlie pulled her away before they were seen, but the encounter shook Julia deeply, reigniting questions of forgiveness. "Is it wrong to want the land back if it means hurting them more?" she asked that night in their hotel room. Charlie held her close, stroking her hair. "They hurt us first, but our love is not the weapon they think it is." The internal conflicts deepened as the project moved forward, forcing the sisters to confront the true cost of their choices: the isolation, the guilt, the unbreakable bond that had both saved and condemned them. Success was within reach, but the emotional price continued to mount with every step closer to the inevitable reunion with the family that had once cast them into the night. The town buzzed with excitement and suspicion as ground broke on the Harlan Ranch development. Charlie and Julia attended the ceremonial event from the back of the crowd, disguised in hard hats and sunglasses, their hearts pounding as local officials praised the anonymous investors for saving the land from bankruptcy. Their father, Robert Thompson, stood on the stage looking older and more stooped, his once proud posture broken by years of financial struggle and the shame of his daughter's disappearance. Margaret sat beside him, her face lined with sorrow, her eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for ghosts. The sisters watched from afar, their hands linked in silent support, the sight stirring a storm of emotions: love, resentment, and the deep ache of lost years. After the event, they retreated to their temporary office in town, where the first official confrontation came unexpectedly when Margaret walked in unannounced, having heard rumors, and demanded to speak with the lead investor. "You," Charlie said, stepping forward, removing her sunglasses as Julia stood beside her. Margaret's face paled, her hand flying to her mouth. "My girls," she whispered before anger replaced shock. "How dare you come back like this after what you did to this family?" Charlie met her gaze steadily. "What we did was love each other honestly, something you refused to accept." Julia tried to mediate, her voice soft. "Mom, we never wanted to hurt you, but we could not live a lie." The conversation turned heated, Margaret accusing them of destroying the family name and bringing divine punishment through the ranch's near loss, while the sisters countered with the pain of being thrown out like trash. The moral dilemma hung heavy: was their return healing or further punishment? Margaret left in tears, but not before revealing that their father had refused all contact with them, even when the bank threatened foreclosure. The meeting left both sisters drained, Julia crying in Charlie's arms, questioning if blood truly was thicker than their love. Over the following weeks, more confrontations arose. Their cousin Lily, now a local realtor, tried to insert herself into the project, demanding a cut for family ties, only to be denied, sparking accusations of greed and old betrayals when Lily admitted she had spread the initial rumors 10 years ago out of jealousy. Aunt Evelyn reached out via letter pleading for a meeting, claiming she had regretted her role in their expulsion, but Charlie suspected ulterior motives tied to financial gain. The small-town prejudice resurfaced in whispers at town hall meetings and cold shoulders from former neighbors who viewed the sisters' relationship as the root of the family's downfall. Charlie pushed forward with business decisions, hiring local workers to ease tensions, while Julia advocated for including a family trust clause that might allow limited reconciliation. Their differing approaches caused friction, testing their bond once again with late-night talks where they weighed justice against mercy. A major turning point came during a private tour of the ranch house, now slated for renovation into a community center. Walking through the old rooms triggered vivid memories: the kitchen where family dinners once happened, the barn where their love had first sparked. Julia broke down in the living room, remembering their father's final words, while Charlie held her, vowing that they would honor the land without letting the past define them. The emotional toll showed in sleepless nights and strained conversations, but their love remained the anchor, each paying the price of vulnerability and resolve. As the project gained momentum, the sisters prepared for the largest confrontation, yet a full board meeting where their identities would finally be revealed to the entire town and family. The anticipation built like a storm on the horizon, forcing them to confront the ultimate question of whether their empowered return would bring closure, or only reopen wounds that had never truly healed. The town hall was packed, standing room only, as the development board called the special session to announce key updates on the Harlan Ranch project. Charlie and Julia sat at the front table, their professional attire masking the turmoil inside. When the chairman introduced the lead investors as the Thompson sisters, a gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by murmurs turning to outright shouts from the family section, where Robert slammed his fist on the bench. "This is a trick," he bellowed. "You have no right." Margaret sat frozen, tears streaming, while Lily whispered furiously to Evelyn. Charlie stood first, her voice calm but firm. "We won the bid fairly, and we intend to honor the land that raised us." Julia joined her, adding softly, "Our love does not erase our roots, but it has taught us strength." The room erupted in chaos, questions flying about morality, family values, and the legality of their involvement. The sisters faced it head-on, detailing their business success and vision for the project that would create jobs and preserve green space. Behind closed doors, after the meeting, the real confrontations unfolded. Robert refused to speak directly but sent messages through lawyers demanding they abandon the project or face lawsuits over old family disputes. Margaret met them privately in the ranch house, her hands trembling as she admitted the years of regret and the pressure from the church that had kept her silent. "I was wrong to let him throw you out," she said, "but your choice still breaks my heart." Julia hugged her mother for the first time in a decade, feeling the weight of lost time, while Charlie stood back, guarding her heart against further betrayal. The moral trade-off became clear when Evelyn confessed she had tipped off Robert about their relationship all those years ago out of fear for the family reputation, now begging for a role in the project to atone. Charlie wanted to exclude her entirely, but Julia argued for measured forgiveness, highlighting the cost of holding grudges forever. A devastating betrayal struck when Lily leaked confidential project documents to a rival developer, attempting to sabotage the deal out of spite and envy over the sisters' success. The sisters discovered the leak through their lawyers and confronted Lily in a tense parking lot meeting where she lashed out, calling their love unnatural and the reason the family had suffered. Charlie nearly lost her temper, but Julia stepped in, choosing to escalation and legal action instead of personal revenge. The incident forced them to sacrifice short-term profits by delaying parts of the project to ensure integrity, paying the price in investor confidence and extra work hours. Through it all, their bond held, Charlie finding solace in Julia's compassion, and Julia drawing strength from Charlie's resolve. Internal monologues revealed the depth of their struggles, Charlie questioning if power was worth the isolation, Julia awakening to the idea that their love could coexist with selective family ties. As negotiations continued, the sisters made the hard choice to offer Margaret a small advisory role in the community center portion, while excluding Robert and Lily entirely. The decision sparked further family division but brought a fragile peace with their mother, who began visiting the site quietly. The town slowly shifted from outrage to reluctant acceptance as jobs were created and the development took shape. Yet the emotional scars remained visible in the way Charlie avoided the old family photos in the ranch house, and Julia still woke from nightmares of the expulsion night. Their awakening came gradually, realizing that true strength lay not in erasing the past but in building despite it. The project moved forward with new momentum, but the sisters knew the final test of their choices was still ahead as the grand opening approached, and the full weight of their return settled over the land they had reclaimed. The grand opening of the Harlan Eco Community dawned bright and clear, with ribbons cut and speeches given under the Texas sun. Charlie and Julia stood side by side on the stage, their hands brushing in quiet solidarity, as the crowd applauded the transformation of the old ranch into a thriving development that honored its history while embracing the future. Margaret sat in the front row, her eyes shining with a mix of pride and sorrow, Robert absent by choice, and Lily watching from the sidelines with bitter resignation. The sisters had navigated every confrontation, every betrayal, and every internal storm to reach this moment, yet the victory felt bittersweet. In the weeks leading up, Charlie had sacrificed personal time to oversee last-minute changes, ensuring local families benefited, while Julia had traded sleep for mediation sessions with Evelyn, who was allowed a minor role after proving her remorse. Their love had been the constant through it all, a quiet force that demanded they face the moral gray areas without compromise. As the event wound down, the sisters walked the familiar fields alone for the first time in years, stopping at the old barn where their story had truly begun. Julia leaned against Charlie, her head on her shoulder. "We did it," she whispered, "but at what cost?" Charlie nodded, feeling the full weight of the decade, the lost holidays, the strained family ties, the societal judgment they still carried. Their awakening was complete. They understood now that their choice to love openly had been both their greatest strength and their deepest wound, forcing growth that the family back home could never have provided. Yet questions lingered, was including Margaret a true reconciliation, or just another compromise that left old hurts unhealed? The town had accepted them on the surface, but whispers remained, and the price paid by all the women involved, their mother aged by regret, their aunt burdened by guilt, their cousin isolated by envy, was evident in every interaction. The final board meeting that evening sealed the project with signatures and handshakes, but not without one last confrontation when Robert appeared unannounced, demanding a share of the land as rightful owner. Charlie faced him directly, her voice steady. "You threw us away for who we are. We built this back without you." Julia stood with her, adding that forgiveness had limits when trust was shattered. Robert left defeated, but the encounter left the sisters reflecting on the cycle of pain they had broken. As night fell, they stood on the porch of the renovated ranch house, now their office, looking out over the lights of the new community. Their journey from outcasts to investors had been paved with tough decisions, each carrying a cost that no amount of success could fully erase. Their love remained pure and unwavering, the foundation that had carried them through every trial, proving that authenticity demanded sacrifice, but also delivered profound freedom. When family prejudice forces such painful choices, was Charlie and Julia's path of empowered return justice served, or a deeper moral wrong that fractured bonds forever?